Hello and welcome to our deep dive webinar about Production Assist 13. So we're really proud to present you this new version, and I will guide you through the new features and give you an impression on how to use this, what the intended use, and all of this kind of stuff so that you can take advantage of this. Depending on the feature, we go a little bit more into detail, or we stay a little bit vague with this. So that's the most important part with this, is that you know that it's there and where to click and how to find it in these webinars. At the end of this session, there's also the option for some Q&A. So just stay tuned with this. So let's start with the first thing in Production Assist 13, and that's the blue button in here. So the blue button in here opens our support center. So now you can start a new conversation with our chatbot. You can ask them, how do I change the load combination, for example? You give a meaningful stuff in here at .de and start the conversation. And then the AI will try to solve this. Note that this is currently in beta, so we are still checking it. So we had a big debate if this is a good thing to do or not a good thing to do. But the plus things really overcome the negative things. So we decided we want to step in with this. The important button in here with this is that you can click at any time to connect to agent, and then you are just like normal connected with our normal support. So if I click on here, it will actually then send this again to the production system, and then someone will actually jump onto the call with this. And took an important thing to notice or to say is every of these AI chats will be monitored. So we will check them. If the AI needs some retraining, we will do this. So that's basically the main thing behind of this. The other thing which is really cool, you can also access the ticket. So if you want to create a ticket, you are not enforced to write a mail to the production system support anymore. You just can create the ticket right in here. The reason for this, why we added this, is so we want more. So if something is not working or something you have an idea, you can use this to send us a ticket without opening another tool. So we really wanted to make easy to get support for Production Assist. That's the live chat feature that we have. It's always in the bottom in here. If you click on the X, it will go away. And then on the next startup, it will be still there. The next change that we have is a rather small one. So if you now click on the theme, there's not only light and dark, there's a dark light theme. So if I'm clicking on this, it will reload it. And the difference is that the renderer will stay white, while all the other things will go into the dark mode. So the difference if I'm in the dark mode itself, also the renderer will be dark. So that was one request by the one user that wanted to be white. So that's what we've added in here with this, so that it's easier to change this in here. One thing, now let us change back to the light theme so that it's in there. One thing that we've also added is in the bottom right to the renderer. So you see that now it actually shows you the orientation that you're currently looking at. A lot of cut tools do have this, and it's really helpful sometimes to look on this and get an idea on how your view is currently aligned in here. The other good thing is in here, there's now a quick settings menu. So if you click on here, you can show some errors or some stuff in here which is changed often. Maybe the most important one, let me just hide the workload, is the show structure, which shows you the yellow lines, and then you can use the show structure to toggle this. So this is really helpful to check if there is actually something in here with this on the structure in there or not. Also, you can switch between the perspective and the orthogonal camera and change this. That's just the perspective changing. So some people prefer to work in the perspective camera. I normally work in the orthogonal camera in here to do this. It's also an option to disable the snapping and activate the clipping plane, but we will come a little bit later to the clipping plane in here. Another new thing that we've added in here, maybe not for someone in the call, but for the other things, I don't want to save. Thank you very much. We've added the Turkish translation, the Japanese translation, and the Chinese translation to it. So now if you change it to Chinese, for example, you see that all these menus and all this transcription that you have in here will now be displayed in Chinese. Going back to English will show this in English again. So it's really easy to change the localization here. Maybe one of the nicest changes, at least I found it really nice with this on the workflow side, is that we've reordered a little bit the menus in here. So before there was a lot of stuff in edit that has to do with rigging and lightning, and it was sometimes a little bit challenging finding what you actually want and have an overview of it. So now in edit, there's only the edit commands for the scene objects and stuff like this. And all the calculation commands are in here in the rigging command. So in here, there's run structural calculation, show calculation overview, calculation settings, select system objects. The special operations has been moved to calculate the compensated chain shorten value or to randomize the chain shorten value, to calculate ballast, to calculate loads for selected hoist. So all of the special functionalities which were before a little bit hidden in the wood are now a little bit easier to find. In Arena, you find the Arena-specific features like the AI hoist placement, the effect from chain shorten and stuff like this, the load cell integration. In the calculation group, you can set which object should be calculated. In connections like drops, grapples, and stuff like this. And in the loads, it's the easy things to create loads in here. So that's a little bit changed in here, how this has been done with this. In the Lightning, there is most of the power calculation stuff now. So you have the power patch 1-to-1, the power patch fill current, and all of the stuff. It's now a little bit more ordered in here, so it's easier to find and to change this actually, that you have this in here and can go on. Also, a workflow improvement with this is you now can tag and color layers and classes. So if you have a lot of classes, sometimes it becomes challenging to manage them. And now you can go in here and, for example, in reports, go in the tagged in here and type in reports. Then all the things that has to do with reports, for example, can be moved in here, and then you can create this tagging thing. They also can be collapsed so that you only can focus on the classes that are important for your current job or not. In addition to this, you now can color them. So if you are in the reports section in here, if you click on the white circle with this, it opens a color picker. For example, you can color a pick a cyan, and then you will see that it's now coloring this complete thing in here in cyan. And if you then click on the green one, you basically have a colored view on this, which is quite nice to work with and to have an overview if you want to organize these kind of things in here. Yeah, that's basically this change. Same thing is working with the classes. So if I'm here in the class and select a color, also this class will be colored with this. This also works with the scene tree in here when it's collapsed, that it will show you this. So it's really easy to see this kind of things in here and to color the specific classes that you want with highlighting colors. A new thing that we've added, and now we jump a little bit more into documentation in here, is a new feature to automatically create PDFs for menu reports. So if I click on File, and if I click on Create Calculation Report, and click on that once report, and let me delete everything in here, I can click on Load, and the new entry is Load Overview for menu. If I'm putting this in here, it adds me the placeholder with this, and then I can click OK. And when I'm doing this, it actually allows me to create a PDF that I can use. And every position that is in here, it will show what are the objects on that position, how much do they weight per piece, and in total, and what is the combined thing. And you see it generates you such a table for all of the different positions that show you how much load actually goes into this one specific position. This is really helpful for some venues that require this. So a Brazilian user requested this kind of thing in here. He spent a lot of time from copying this around. Now he has really an easy summarizable sheet just with the PDF thing. This can be customized using the normal CI tools from us. So you can add a background with this. You can add some more pre-appending text. You can add a table of content up front with it that is mentioning all of this. So that's really easy to do. One thing that is quite interesting when you are working well with these kind of rigs. So you see in 3D, it's really challenging to actually understand which are the levels and stuff like this, is that you now can directly connect Production Assist with a VR headset. So before you needed to upload it in the browser and then use the browser to access this. And right now, the only thing that you need to do is you can click on here on connect to VR headset, and then it automatically generates you QR code, which you can scan, for example, with your Meta Quest. So I have it right in here, and if I would join in, it's a little bit challenging to show on a Zoom call. I will show this on the recording with this, how this will look like, so what to expect. Then you can jump in. So you don't need to upload it to a website or to some other server. It's just locally in here that you actually can look what's going on in here and give an idea on how the structure is working. In our engineering office, we use this feature quite a lot. So we get quite a lot of plans. We need to understand really quick what the person is actually wanting to do. And with this VR integration, we just can look at it. So basically we sit in front of our computer, click on the QR code and can actually do this and check this really easy. Wait, I just make this silent. Perfect. So the next thing in here was also requested by a lot of users. So if you're doing a structural calculation, sometimes you really want to know fast what kind of loads are currently in here. And for this, you can either click on these bars in here. So if I'm click on it, it will open the calculation overview, or I can open this with clicking on rigging, show calculation overview, and then it shows me the errors in here. But more importantly, it would also show me all the loads with the different weights in here. So I can really easy see what goes into this with this and what is the actual weight of this. So you see in here, it's like 30 tons of load. And I can see every entry and can check if it's actually okay or not and how much each individual piece has. It's really easy to see, for example, how many fixtures are inside this and all of this kind of stuff to get an impression on how this actually works and how you actually get the load into this. Yes. Then, sorry, now I missed this. Another thing which is quite nice is in here, if you now go to the calculation results and you click on the MB, for example, in here, you can see the bending moments in here, and now you have an option to scale them. So if you bump up the numbers every time you're doing this, it's actually allowing you to scale the things. This is quite helpful if you actually want to see some smaller of the cut reactions in here. Also, a new thing in here, if you click on the show workload with this, is to highlight only specific parts of the truss in here. So there's only a show workload, only show results above, and then can put in the 0.8 with this, which basically will remove everything that is above 0.8, below 1.8. Currently we have 48 workload. So if I type in here 0.4 with this and let it recalculate, it will only show me the part of the truss that is actually over 40%. You see all the other parts in here. So all of this, only basically these two parts of the truss system in here are currently important for the calculation with this. Especially if you work on trusses with a little bit more workload and where it's a little bit more challenging where stuff this actually is, it's really easy to focus on what is really important for the thing in here. Let's jump to the next thing, which is really easy. That is our AI Hoist placement feature. So what you see in here is a rather small trick in here. So then it's easier to understand how it works and stuff like this. And this rig in here doesn't have any hoists. This is basically it's actually a rig that has been calculated by our engineering office. And the problem for this was that the roof capacity is rather small. So in here for this specific rig, the roof capacity was at 100 kilonewton. So actually, the challenge was not to hang this, but the challenge was to hang it and stay within the limit of 1 kilonewton. And it took us a tremendous amount of time to actually find the correct places for the hoists in here so that we don't exceed this 100 kilonewton. The nice thing, this is now solved really easy. So you click on the arena feature, place hoist to structure, type in you only want to have 1 kilonewton max in here, pressing OK, and then it will actually calculate this and check what are the relevant hoist position in here to come to a solution. So you see it takes some time to calculate it, and you see it needs quite a lot of hoist for this, because this in here is an area load, which is 400 kilos, and you need to distribute this in here quite a lot. So it is quite challenging to find this. So if I'm now going in here and selecting this and click on the show support in here so that I actually see it, it's a little bit challenging with this. So let us quickly rotate this by 45 degrees. It's a little bit easier to read. You will see that it actually puts in all the loads in here with this so that it's good distributed and actually can be calculated with this with the right thing. You can do the same thing in here when you go on the rigging area and do this with a little bit smaller loads, so like 2 kilonewtons also, and then you don't need this many hoists with this. And it's always finding your hoist position in here that actually can be used for the trade show rigging, that it's a little bit easier to place it. An important thing to know about this is that when nothing is selected inside the scene, the structure will analyze the complete truss system. So it will check everything which is in the drawing, the current calculation scope. And if you run the menu command only for selected object, you basically only need to select this, and then it will automatically just do this for selection. Now, when you're doing this in here, you now see it's a little bit differently calculated with this. So you don't need this many hoists with this. Let me select this in here S, and let me click on show results in 2D. And you see it actually puts me all the loads in here, and I do stay under the 2 kilonewton quite easily. That is the limit for the specific menu without manually moving it from the left and to the right, which could be a little bit tedious in here for this kind of things. Okay, let's go to the next thing in here with this, and let's have a look on this structure with this. So this here is a layer structure, and it's calculated currently with a wind speed by 40. Well, that's not the right thing because I didn't set it up correctly with this. By the EN wind load settings in here. So I used, when I go into here with this, I use the wind load direction EN 1814 out of use, and then I can actually calculate this in here. The main problem with this is sometimes this generates too high of workloads with this. So you want to basically disassemble something in the structure during high wind. And for this, there is this new feature. So in the load combination settings, you can set this, for example, to the use in use EN 13814 load case, which is basically the wind speed when the structure is in operation. So below wind speed 6, more or less with this. And now you can add the 7th wind pressure. And the 7th wind pressure, for example, is then set to be no use with this. If you then press on OK, it actually will do 2 calculations in the background and do check this. If you now look on this, it will actually give you the where we have it, the load case in here somewhere. Where do I see the angle? Loads and things are in here. I need to go into this. Sorry, it's not in here, but in here, where it shows you if it's in the 2nd wind speed or which is the wind direction which is currently used to calculate this maximum. So right now it will calculate both wind speeds at the same time. As the first wind speed is a little bit lower than the 2nd wind speed, the 2nd wind speed always wins. But the nice thing in here, and that's basically also really helpful, you now can click on the button where we have it, use in 2nd wind speed. And if you basically toggle this, it will basically allow you to calculate this as it would be not part of the calculation in here. So if I disable this, this will be not used for the calculation in the 2nd wind speed. So it's like tearing something down. And this can be for everything. So this user in second wind speed applies to wind load planes. This applies to all the other parts that you have in here, so that you really can level what kind of calculation goes into here and have two wind speeds in here. So one in use with all the LED walls up and one out of use with the LED walls down mounted with this. So that is basically the advantage of this that this can have. In addition to this, you can use the calculate from all direction in here, and then it would calculate it from all directions. So two wind speeds, all direction. You see the calculations quite queue up with this, what is possible, and give you an idea of this. So if I'm clicking on here on calculate from all directions, it will actually start the calculation with this. It takes a little bit of time to finish all of it. So let's wait a little bit. And what you then see around of this, that's actually putting in multiple calculation lines with this in here. So we just need to wait till it's inserted everything. So it's quite a lot of stuff in here. So is it already finished? No. Bit of an anticlimax. Then it should show this. Let me see why it's not showing it. I think it's still injecting the calculation results. So show. It's regenerating them. Yeah, and then it's showing them in the scene with this. The other option that you now have, and let me quickly turn this off. It's still inserting this in here, calculate from all direction, is the option to add additional. Wait, in here it's still working. Perfect. In here now we have this, is to add additional load cases in here, and now you have a secondary checkbox in here. So for example, if I'm going in here and type in a load factor for all loads in here, I actually can tell this that this should be calculated as well. So if I turn this on, it will also use this for the calculation in here. An important thing is that you need to set the level of the load combination. So if you want this to be applied to trusses, you need to set it to the design level. If you assign it to the characteristic level, basically it will only be assigned to hoist. So if I'm selecting the design level, pressing OK, it will recalculate, and now you see it becomes red in here. So because now if I'm looking in here, it actually is using the load case load combination in here, so which I created for the calculation, and then it's overloaded. This in here allows you to generate automation load cases. So what you can do is you can give every piece of the in the scene a specific where do we have it, a specific load group. And for example, if I add a load group like this in here, wait, I need to generate it like this. I can't get it in there. So one load group in here, and then I'm selecting this load group. Then, for example, I can tell this in here inside this load combination that in here the load combination should be like 5 times. And then when I'm having, for example, an automation rig, I can add the loads for the multiple parts in here and then give you every position a separate load case. And with this feature, I always can only enable this one feature in this specific load case in order to do this automation calculation in here. It's also a nice feature in there. It needs some time to play with it to fully understand it, but you can turn it on and off in here. So if you turn it off, then it will be not calculated. If you turn it on, then it will be calculated in here so that you can do this. Let me already start Vectorworks in the background with this. So the next feature that we have is actually also a user requested feature, which can be quite nice. So we have the work case, for example, here for this rig that I want to know what is the result of these hoists here that I just selected or combined. Doing this is possible already with the worksheets. So what you could do in the worksheets in here is we can go to the properties. Yes, I know that this is broken. Yes. Wait, sorry. going back with this. So can go in here, go to the load overview dialog, and then click on the modify in here and say, I only want to see selected objects. Then it would show me this, and I need to click on the summary, and then it would also do something similar in here. But it's also possible just to add now a selection group in here. And then if I'm adding the selection group, it will automatically summarize the loads on this selection group. And now it's even selection independent. So now, even if I'm moving this hoist in here with, well, that will not do anything. So for example, if I'm deleting this thing in here with this, it will recalculate and it will update this value in here. When you are in Vectorworks or in AutoCAD, but I will show you this feature in AutoCAD in here, in Vectorworks right now, you also can use these features. So if I'm downloading, I don't want to download anything. I only want the H30. Oh, well, we can use this one, the Protas. So if I'm going in here and then basically say I want a hoist in here, 1 and 2. I can select these two hoists and create a selection group for them. And this selection group also reports this inside the plan. So it's really easy to do this if you have multiple things, and they don't need to be on the same truss. So sometimes, for example, in here, what we could also do with this is that we do something in here with this and add a hoist to this as well, 1 and 2. And for whatever reason, I want to report these two things in here. So I'm creating a selection group. I'm deleting the other one so that they don't overlap. And then I see in here, it shows you this, where the load actually is and how it's connected with these kind of things with this two hoist directly in the Vectorworks drawing. It's also a nice feature, also user requested, in order to organize your rig a little bit more simple in here with this. The other option that has been added, and it's also a good thing to show this, is in here that you now can show the center of gravity. So if you click on show center of gravity with this, it will actually show you, wait, why I'm not seeing it in as creation of mothers. Yes, that will actually show you the center of gravity for this specific truss in here. Why is the center of gravity important? So the center of gravity for these kind of trusses is important to check if the truss is tilting or not. So if the center of gravity in here is outside the truss in here, the truss will actually start sliding with this, because what will happen is the truss will rotate and the center of gravity will be below this specific point. So that is what is happening if you're actually not loading this correctly. So the other thing in here that this also does for the calculation part, it's that it kind of fixes this at this position in here. But the relevant thing to check if something is tipping or not, it's this thing in here, so the center of gravity. So in production, it's an, well, magenta, purple cross that shows this, and then Vectorworks, it's just a gray hoist in here. Now, every time I'm adding some loads with this, it will actually change in here and update the position of this kind of thing, where the center of gravity is. Especially for automation purposes, this is quite important and good to use with this, that you can get an idea what this actually is. The other thing comes a little bit from our structural engineering background that I want to show, and this is the QR code documenting with this. So quite often we see that we receive plans from other people where they tell how much load or what is the load on the hoist in here with this. So basically we get plots like this, so that show you in here, and let me quickly delete this so that it even becomes a little bit more strange with this, so that we don't see the labels in here, so that we see 0.65 kilonewton in here and 0.64 kilonewton in there. But we don't have any option to actually check what safety factors have been used, what loads have been going into the calculation. So basically, for me as an engineer, I immediately doubt this thing. So I don't say I can't use this to base my calculation on it, I always need to ask the people, oh, wait, well, what you are doing in here. And for this, what we've added is that there is something that we call show calculation overview. And if you do this, it actually generates you a QR code with all the loads that are part of the calculation and all the workloads that are part of this that you can place in your drawing. If you now scan this QR code, I also just can click on show calculation online. It is doing the exact same thing. I can see what kind of loads go into this, and I can see the cross section and all of the stuff. So just with this, if I'm seeing a plotted file with this, I have the option to access all the relevant calculation data that actually allows me to check, is this done correctly? And that is a big improvement for this. So it's possible for this to open this just with the button in here, co-calculation online. Or what you also can do is you can add the QR code in this. So the good thing that you should do when doing the calculation in here is actually generate this QR code in here and then place it onto your plot where you're reporting loads for specific things so that people can check if everything is done up to standards and with the right safety factors in here so that they can save that everything has been done properly with this. Okay, then next feature in here. And for this, I need this file in here with this, yes, this festival. So this is a layer structure that we have in here. And this layer structure is, well, it's a normal layer structure with this, but it's using fixtures that are standing in here. So basically for the sides thing in here, the fixture is a wind load plane for this. And with this kind of wind load plane in here, we actually needed before to calculate the area of the fixture, which is inside the wind. And we need to place a point load in here. It was quite a lot of work with this to do this. So that's why it was always, well, kind of like the unlucky job in here. But now we have a really easy way for doing this. So if I'm selecting the fixtures in here, I just can click on use geometry as a wind load plane. So if I'm deactivating this, it will not use them as a wind load plane anymore. So it will recalculate this without giving them a wind load plane. Then if I'm activating this, it will actually do the recalculation of this using them as a wind load plane in here with this. You will see now when the calculation kicks in shortly, it will update you the deflection in here. So this is based on the angle of the thing. So basically the wind load plane for this kind of fixtures is different when you look from here than when you actually look from the side. So every time it's doing this, it's basically changing them and projecting them depending on the wind load angle. And it's doing this automatically. This works for all 3D geometries that can be imported into Production Assist. So you need to see it in Production Assist, and then any geometry can do this. So if it's a fixture, if it's a speaker, or if it's a bumper, or if it's just a scenic piece. So if you can generate the 3D geometry from it with Production Assist, you actually can calculate it really easy and get an idea on what this actually is and how to calculate it with it. Jumping to the next thing, it's also a Vectorworks specific thing. It's worth mentioning. So if you now open,
Was dafür sein
yes,
Konto.
Kian, ich schalte dich mal einmal stumm, Entschuldigung. So one important thing in here in the Vectorworks kind of thing is in here, if you now open a new file or something existing file, it opens a different window than before. You now can disable the layers that will go into Production Assist. So especially if you have a lot of layers here that you don't care about and don't want to put into Production Assist, you just can disable them. So that's one request that some users have in here. And we have added it for this release so that it's a little bit faster with this. Yeah, that's basically the 1.13 or the 13 release with this. Do you have any questions about this? So now is the time for Q&A.
Good afternoon, Moritz. Thanks again for a great webinar. Great free webinar. I had one question. Your auto place hoists, well, I guess it's two questions. One, is that an arena only feature?
So currently we've put it under Arena, but we currently don't check the license. So that is something that we're still deciding with this, how to do. So right now it's a new feature. Everybody can try it. And depending on the feedback we get on it, we will put it in Arena or we will put it in just the normal version. But for now, it is free to use for everyone, including in the community version. So that is currently something that we still decide with this.
Gotcha. And then does that place Vectorworks hoist objects in Vectorworks?
Currently not. So that's something that we decided against with this. We can do this in the future. We wanted more to collect this in here with this. So I've loaded in here. So currently, if I'm clicking, wait, where we have it, Arena, place hoist to structure, 2 kilonewton. Oh, I've crashed it. It places chains with this. And so that's oh boy. Yeah, so it places basically production assist hoist object. They do look similar. You also can use the label function to display this, but in the future release, we also will place the hoist with this. The decision was a little bit that we then also, it's a little bit challenging to select bridles with this. So in the next thing, we want to also give the option to bridle automatically stuff. That's why it was not decided upfront to use the Vectorworks hoist with this. But it's really easy to replace them. It's a one-click operation. Create similar object in Vectorworks that drove the thing.
Cool. It's a lot of cool new features. I like to see the progress. So thanks.
Yeah, we also really like it. Thank you so much.
A question beside all this calculation works. How is it possible to switch off fixtures which have light output? It's annoying if I have to do it with every fixture themselves.
Click on settings, click on renderer, and there is the beam display mode.
Ah, perfect.
So the beam display mode for new installation is default off, and for older installation, the default was on. So that is why in your computer, it still has this in here. So just turn it off, and then it doesn't bug you anymore with this. That's a little bit the hiccup. We also saw that this is can be quite annoying. Then Pascal, do you want to?
Yeah, I have a question. I already played around with version 13 and I saw this new feature that I'm able to decide which construction layers I would like to import and which not. And I placed check marks on every construction layer that I would like to use. But the result was that I can't see any layers. Is there any change in the workflow that caused that I now can't see any layers, or is it a bug, or do I?
If then it's a bug, can you send me the file and we will have a look?
Yeah.
It should.
Yeah, so I imported a drawing that I used several times with Production Assist. Now I get the window that I have to choose which layer I would like to use. I make check marks on every layer that I wanted to use, and then the layer menu in the navigation window is empty.
That seems like a bug. Send me the file and I will set some of our team to check it. Thank you so much, Pascal. No? Another question? Perfect. It's quite sunny outside, so no, that's good with this. So maybe just some summarizing that what about the release and what decisions were made with this. So one key thing that we see with this and is that well, structural calculations in the entertainment industry need to professionalize. And I don't mean this in any bad thing with this. I know that everybody, especially here in this meeting, and so tries to do their best. But we see there is a lot of accidents with rigging calculation and stuff like this, and structures failing and wind loads and all of the stuff. So that's why for us it's really important to make software that is secure and helps you in the process. That's why we added the QR code. That's why we added more stuff to actually check for other users to see if your structural calculation is good. Because the most errors happen in a hurry. So if you don't have so much time, and it's always good to have a fallback solution for this. So that's really important. This was one of the driving things in the here with this to increase the security of calculation results. You already did this with the digital signed PDF reports in the last part of the, I think it was the 1.12 release, but we even put it further with the QR code that you can add to your plots so that it's really safe. What we still see quite a lot is really just as plots with some numbers on there, and then you give this. It's not possible for anyone to actually verify if this structural calculation is valid, if there was a mistake and stuff like this. So basically, you're taking the ability for another person to check what's going on. And that's something that can't be the case for this. So that's why we're moving more and more forward in this in this direction to really provide a reliable solution package in here. That's also why we have the engineering office. So for a lot of things, it's good enough if you're doing the calculations, but always have in mind, you are the one that will be blamed for this. So that actually this will come back to you if you do a mistake with this. And even if you don't want to do it on purpose, and I don't think nobody wants to do this on purpose, they still will come back to you. And so there's a specific limit that is depending on your skill set where we need, so where I would tell you, get someone who actually knows what they're doing. It doesn't need to be our engineering office. We also have interfaces to other engineering office that they can use to use it. That is really important. So we want to be part of the solution with production assist and not part of the problem in there. And well, the other thing with this is if you have features that you think are worth mentioning and implementing in production assist, let us know. That's why we've added the chat box in there. So to connect us more deeply with our users and that we can get the feedback. So a lot of the features that we've added in the 13th release were actually user requests. For example, the colored layer and all of this stuff. This was a user request. The 2-level wind load speed calculation was a request by our engineers because they spent quite a lot of time changing between the load cases. It made it a little bit challenging to organize all of this. And the gravity solution calculation was also just, it came out of a process where we worked on an automation project to make it working and actually to give it a good results. And all the other things, so like if you click on here, that was a user that told us this, he wants to exit it faster. Or this rigging thing with this, so it was a user that was promoting it. So that is something that we are really keen on getting. So if you have something which needs change, let us know. We will discuss the options with you, give you a proposal for it, and actually then implement it. And then, thank you so much. Have a good week and a nice summer. And just with this, there will be another production assist really update this evening, and it will increase the performance quite a lot and fixes some other bugs with the connecting the desktop app to the plugin. There was a smaller bug where the order is working, and something with the full screen mode on Windows. Then, thank you so much and have a nice day.
Thanks, Moritz.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.